Hello, friends. Welcome, one and all. Today's topic, we're going to just get right into it. As always, I don't care much for long-winded introductions, but it's based on a video I posted to TikTok less than a day and a half ago, just discussing this podcast clip that was going around. I didn't actually listen to the whole thing. I didn't care to. I just heard the statistic, and I know the gentleman in it is trying to give helpful advice and show what that leads to. I'm not making any slights against him or anything like that, but it was the narrative, how we talk about physical intimacy in our day and age. So for context, it's almost 2023, and I don't think there's anything really new about this. Okay, so it's the premise that the free love movement, which was meant to be a sexual revolution, okay, in my opinion, is not a revolution. It was a reaction, okay? It was a strong reaction to the way sex was dealt with in previous decades, which is something repressed, something kind of dirty, something taboo, maybe even immoral, and the discussion of contraceptives was taboo. The discussion of health care, access to safe abortions, was shush shush shush, and so people kind of had enough, and they blew the lid off that. But you're on opposite ends of the same thing. They're both really extreme. So mass sexual liberation, I don't actually find liberating at all. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying this only hurts women. This hurts everybody. This hurts everybody because it does away with intimacy, all right? So what I've done is I've tried to make as many video replies as I could, but I've got my notebook here and I've made some notes to some of the questions I couldn't get to, and I just thought, let's just talk about it in here. So the really helpful thing is how many people interacted in the comments and left very insightful, provoking comments or anecdotes from their own life, which they experienced, growth and understanding, and it's really nice. Okay, so if you're interested in watching those, I just made a playlist. It's a Guru Grit on TikTok, okay? But here we'll go. So I called it Sex, Society, Celibacy, and Men, because it mainly focused around how men who have not had sex in the past year, 1 in 3 men, the statistic is apparently based in the United States, it shows a deeper thing, that something's not evolving for this demographic. I'm not really sure exactly what age is, if they're including teenagers, 13 to 17, or is it 18 to 35, 18, what is it? Okay, 18 to 30, I think, something like that. But okay, anyway, the point is, it's showing isolation, it's showing a lack of, emotional intelligence, skills towards intimacy, lack of purpose, and it's leaving people kind of in the cold. It's making them feel left out. They're not having these joyful experiences. They're not really even understanding how they go about getting them. And, sometimes people will have other knee-jerk reactions to that. Well, if you want to have consistent sex, you need to get a partner. And if you don't know how to get a partner, you need to work on that, right? Fair enough, and then there's other knee-jerk reactions where people are like, but then she has to be pretty and she has to be this and she has to be that. It's you just have to like the person. But in order to get to like the person, you have to get to know the person. So somebody asked me, can you turn your stitches on? I want to stitch your video. I agree with you. He asked 3 times. And of course, me being me, I already had a feeling this was going to go really badly. So I said, whatever, right? Let's just check it out. But I don't have my stitches on only because at the beginning I did. And some dude stitched me saying, how do you see children in astrology? In a birth chart. But he only clipped out 3 words. He clipped out me going, children in astrology, like that, all enthusiastic. And then he made a video saying that I was recruiting children into the occult, called me a witch, saying I should burn in hell, and that he would like to see me burned alive, and sent death threats. And I thought, I'm just never doing this again. So unless we're friends, you're not allowed to touch my videos. But I thought, okay, it's been 2 years. Let's just see what this guy has to say. And he was doing okay until he got to the very end, and he took the last part of my video where I said, well, why would a woman that you don't take out to dinner, you don't ask out properly, you don't pick up, see that she gets home safely, lets you into her body and take something from her, that doesn't make her feel safe? That makes absolutely no sense. He's like, so on the one hand, she's saying it's a transaction, and on the other hand, she wants all these things. That is a transaction. It's again, and this is embarrassing. The dude's 45, right? So how do you take consideration for another human being to mean that it's a transaction? This is what's odd to me. And this is something I've just generally observed in my life. Generally, when people lack maturity, they consider reciprocity to be a tit-for-tat thing. This is not possible with men and women. It cannot be exactly the same. You know, it can't, because if one person contributes to your life, they bring joy, they bring some kind of nourishment, nurturing, friendship, companionship, playfulness, whatever. Like, how do you quantify that? You can't both be surgical residents making the same amount of money to the penny, to the dollar, because then you're just going to try to quantify everything, and we can't do that, because it's like, who carries the child, who does the breastfeeding, who does the, it's like, it's just, stop, it's so immature, you know, just like play the hand that you're dealt. Sorry, my sister got me bubble tea, and I have to take a break every now. Very generous of her. My hand just hit that, and I was afraid it's gonna fall over. But it's like, that's what he's saying. He's like, oh, so you want me to not get laid, but you want me to take you to dinner, sir? If I can call you sir, if you are a gentleman, this is how you generally get to know people. Even when you make new friends, you spend money, you spend time, you spend energy. You pay your phone bill, you interact with them, you talk to them, right? You go to the pub, you buy a beer for yourself or for them. You pay for parking, you drive your car. Like, that's just mammals. We're a social mammal. That's just how you interact with others, how you socialize, is how you civilize yourself. So again, just this constant reactionary missing the mark and then displacing blame is just exhausting to everyone on both sides, because I don't in my heart of hearts think that some 50-year-old man wakes up one day and goes, you know what? I don't think some people, you know, sure, there's exceptions to everything, but I don't think they're like, yeah, I would just be happy if women didn't see me as a person and didn't treat me nicely. I don't need intimacy. I don't need someone to ask me how my day was. You're human. We all want to be loved and flow love to somebody. It's a very rewarding experience, right? So again, this like tit for tat thinking, super childish, doesn't get you anywhere. And again, I have to quote one of my favorite teachers, Ian Van Zandt, who talked about breakups, and she said, whose fault is it when your heart gets broken? She said, it's no one's fault, but you're responsible. You're responsible to put your life back together, to put yourself back together. You're responsible for your life. You're responsible for your healing. You put yourself in a situation that got you hurt. Even if you didn't think it would happen, it doesn't matter. It's your life. You have to pick it up. You have to, okay? So if you're not getting something satisfying out of these interactions with the opposite sex or the same sex, you're responsible, okay? You have to figure out what's going on with this communication, this miscommunication, desirability, understanding, okay? There has to be something in there for you to figure out, okay? So it's too simplified to just be like, women this, men that, men. It's no, like, we're not 5. We can't just be like, Billy did it, and like point the finger at somebody. We're functioning adults, okay? So let's just like figure stuff out. And that's what I was saying, is like, there's like these forces and this media and these things and that things that just sort of like make us feel that to be desirable, to be lovable, you have to have a high body count. You have to have sexual magnetism, sexual charisma. You have to have some kind of pull towards the erotic. When truthfully, if anyone's been in a relationship, and more than that, been in a long-term, sustainable, healthy relationship, you know that is, yes, it's important, but it's not what you spend most of your time doing. Okay, you break bread, you talk about your dreams, you talk about your in-laws. You know, if your cat is sick, what bill needs to be paid. Like, there's things to do. You need someone to actually build a life with, right? So the idea that this is the only and most important thing that your worth comes from is just, stop it. It makes you feel terrible, okay? Because you have so much more to offer as a person. Moving on. So someone said, you need to understand that undersexed men equals a lack of intimacy, and therefore they lack purpose. Well, you can find your purpose through just about anything. It doesn't have to come through sex. And yes, I agree. It is really important part of life. If you're in a relationship, somebody said in the comment, it's like a glue to the relationship, but you don't build a relationship on that foundation alone. So if you want that to give you a sense of purpose, you have to have the sensibility to know that you have to attach yourself to a relationship. So I went to a house party with some old friends of mine many, many years ago, okay? Long time ago. And there was this dude who was like a womanizer, like very charming and like playful. He just like loved women, or he's like a Casanova. And he understood, I guess, even at our young age, that to get a lot of girls, you had to put in a lot of work, you know, but he wasn't lazy. And he was like a little bit ahead of his time in this sense. He had like a gift or something, a knack for dating, for talking, for being lavish and all that stuff. And he was by no means rich. He was like 19 and he worked retail. So don't give me that. Okay. Like he's Andrew Tate. He's not. Okay. He just like understands what women like, and he was willing to do that to get what he wanted. And this one of our like friends comes into the party with his longtime partner, and of course like we're all like a little bit under the influence, and he's like, "Yo, Chris is here. Chris is the man. You want to know why?" And we were all thinking like, because he's nice and we like him, and just like because he's got a girlfriend, he gets free sex, and everyone like burst out laughing. But then he said, "No, seriously, dude, like it's so admirable because we were like teenagers." He's like, "You've been together for like 3 years. It's so cool. You do everything together. Like you go mini putting." And even then, like almost 20 years ago, we understood the energetic and social currency that being in a relationship provides you with some type of stability and consistency and like certainty in life. So if you have a bad day, you can rely on somebody. If you have a good day, you have somebody to celebrate with, and it should ideally be like reciprocated, right? And that going through people, though fun in the interim, was not great in the long term. Okay. So if teenagers could figure this out, I don't want to hear some like 35-year-old being like, but women want me to pay for their dinner. It's like, well, you can also get her pregnant and be her financial ruin for the rest of her life. I don't think $20 at the Pickle Barrel or Cheesecake Factory such a bad deal, you know? And this again, people are always going to twist your words, they'd be like, "So you're saying you can get sex for $20, so just legalize prostitution." It's like, no, you have to get to know the whole person. That's the ideal. And if you don't do that, that's how you end up lonely. That's how you end up missing a lot of skills around intimacy. Okay? Emotional intelligence is a really important skill to have. It's a transferable skill across the board in the world, with your neighbors, with other cultures, with your coworkers, in the professional and personal standing, okay? Right. The art of romance and foreplay, someone wrote, is dead. No one is really fluent. I agree. There's not a lot of literacy around romance and foreplay. So what does it take to be attractive for a man versus a woman? Honestly, as always, I would say just be yourself, okay? Don't try to be someone else, because I'm not going to say their name, but they left 3 comments on different videos, and I was like, why do these people expose themselves? I don't know. But he goes, sexual liberation is wonderful for me because I don't have to try very hard and I get to sleep with a lot of women. Then in another video, he wrote, don't tell them that because like I don't have to work as hard. I get what I want. And if girls want to put out, I'm going to encourage them. I'm going to tell them, yeah, it's good for you. Yeah, like it's empowering, because he says, ultimately I get what I want. And another one he said, and there's no responsibility. There's no responsibility. There's no commitment. I'm not accountable. He's having the time of his life. You know what I mean? So of course, some people are going to think that and get away with it. But in that, a lot of things are lost. Okay. A lot of things are lost, like playfulness. Sex can be playful. It can be fun, funny, kind, interesting, mentally stimulating. Okay. It can be a lot of things. It's not just one thing. And for people who keep writing, and obviously they're like really, really young, they're like, men's needs are different and we're animals and men are visual and yeah, just get a prostitute. It's like, you just haven't like fully seen and tasted life to evolve to understand that will not keep you happy for long. It won't. It just won't. Okay. Like have you considered like famous, rich, powerful people who've had many, many mistresses, many, many lovers? Tom Jones is a great example. He's cheated on his wife of like, I don't know, 4 decades or something, like a bunch of times. And now that he's older and he's widowed, he regrets it so bitterly because he's like, she's always been there. She's the only one who believed in me. It's like, they always realize in the end and come back to being like, that's what holds you down. Like, that's what matters, because this person gives me this multidimensional experience instead of just a singular experience, right? And that's also not true, because I mean, like, people make really funny comments on other TikTok videos, but it's true. They're like, if men being visual has nothing to do with it. If men were visual, they would notice a dirty kitchen. They would know when you dyed your hair. They would know that they leave filthy towels and underwear. They would know, but they don't notice. So it has nothing to do with that. And I completely agree. I think also women think more thoughts than men. So therefore you think more sexual thoughts than men per day compared to the opposite sex. But I have my experience as a woman. I haven't been a man in this life. And I can honestly say I hear what other women say in private to me. I know what we talk about. We are by no means like frigid and undesirous about physical intimacy. I think we want it just as much as men. And sometimes even more so. But we don't want just that. We want to actually feel safe, have some interesting conversation, actually know who you're going home with, like you want to know what's going on. And yeah, that's kind of it. So in terms of foreplay, yes, foreplay isn't something that happens like 2 minutes before the act, right? It's like ongoing. So if you ghost someone for a week and then hit them up on Friday night, why? That's not interesting to them. It's not like they're frigid. It's not like they're not willing. Well, they're probably not willing at that point, but they're like, this isn't fun for me. Like, this isn't fun I'm not a dog. Like, I don't come when you beckon, like when you bellow my name. I'm like, bah, 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 you have to have that game, or like that, like I said, playfulness and fun. I don't mean game as in like, again, everyone's going to be like, you said game, but you have to have that sense that the fun has to be consistently delivered. The conversation, the interaction, the interest. You don't awaken interest out of the clear blue sky. Esther Perel, I believe, did a talk where she said that female eroticism is inherently narcissistic. The female arousal is inherently narcissistic. The way to turn a woman on is to talk to that woman about that woman. And I've always thought that was true. I've always said to I've said to many people, I clearly don't hold back, but I was like, what makes you think if you text a girl, like on a Friday night, that she's going to be like, yeah, I'll come, great. Why? Because you have a boner? I'll be right there. No, because that boner has nothing to do with her. Do you see? So even if you're happily married, if your spouse walked into the room ready to go, your first thought as a woman, I would imagine, would be like, where's that coming from? Because you weren't just talking to me. So I don't know if you were thinking of me. What, like the only acceptable way for you to be in the mood is to make it about me. If you don't make it about me, I'm immediately suspicious and I'm like, what's this about? So I just think that I'm fulfilling a really base need in you that has nothing to do with me. And that's really the root of what it is to be used. So why would I willingly let you use me? And then I probably won't orgasm and I probably won't have fun. That makes absolutely no sense. That's like going to work, but saying, keep the money. You don't have to pay me. I'll just come and work and I'll go broke and I'll be destitute. That makes absolutely no sense. But energetically, because energy is the most powerful currency in our existence here in this realm, that's exactly what's happening. You're not getting a return on investment. So, you're not even being invested in. You're just doing the investing. So that makes absolutely no sense. You wouldn't do it with money. Why would you do it with your time? Why would you do it with your energy? And the most powerful energy, of course, is creative energy, which is your sexual energy. Okay, so that idea of foreplay, dating, banter, all that's, once that clicks, that kind of has to stay tuned in. Like it just does, unless you have things to deal with, like, personal tragedies come up, obviously, in relationships. There's ebb and flow, but you have to have some sense that it's not like you flip a switch and the woman's like, ding, and men too. Men go through depressive periods. Men get really tired. Men are affected by their diets. They're like, if they drink too much, sometimes they don't want to. People are multidimensional beings. You can't just expect them to always be into it when you're into it, right? You have to say, that's a human being. They're having a hard day. What's going on? How do we fix that first? All right. And the lack of sex is very isolating, and there's nobody to blame for that. Lack of sex is actually, I wonder why it's isolating. Isolating in what sense? You can have friends without having sex with them. You can have community, family members, ultimate frisbee leagues or something, hockey friends, golf friends, chess friends, book club friends. You don't sleep with any of them. So if you mean like romantically and such, then try to deeply know somebody and then consider if you're actually interested in sleeping with them, because I don't believe that was the whole point of the video. I don't believe that, well, not the whole point, it was one of the many points. I don't believe that just sleeping with someone fulfills, I don't think it makes you feel closer to anything. Is it Brave New World? Aldous Huxley said that love will replace sex, as I'm paraphrasing, obviously I'm not quoting it all, but as a word that's dirty, to mean something dirty. So like now it's like, oh yeah, just have sex, no strings attached. Whatever, Sex in the City does it, Carrie does it, this person, I saw it on TV, this person does it, this song said to do it. It's just a one night stand, it's just a summer fling, it means nothing. And then, so many people, okay, I'm not making this up, there's, a lot of people, hundreds of comments just saying, yeah, it makes me feel hollow, it makes me feel terrible, I don't like it, I don't enjoy this. I didn't learn anything about that person, the person doesn't know anything about me. This isn't fun for me. Almost 400 comments. And that's what I'm saying, is like, just because you're getting laid doesn't mean that you're any happier. It's what that what goes with that and what that means to you. So for some people, I would honestly think a very small niche, very, very tiny percentage of people can do that and have it mean absolutely nothing to them. I don't think that's the truth for most people. And the reason I can say that confidently now is that I'm in my 30s and I've spoken to lots of people, and we were going through this when like the apps got made and swiping was happening, and no one was happier for it. I don't just mean like girls, I mean guys too. They were like, I don't get it. I ask these girls out. We go back to mine. And nothing comes of it. It's like, because that's not what you build a relationship on. Once you build a relationship, that can help a lot with bonding. Obviously, that helps with trust. It's a powerful act, right? But to talk about feelings is somehow taboo. And that's what the Aldous Huxley thing was like, it's dirty. It's like, that's weird. I remember years ago, my friend, her mom and her mom's friend were like speaking, and she walks into the kitchen or whatever, and the mom's friend said that her daughter and her boyfriend of 3 years just purchased a house downtown Toronto. And I mean, like if you live here, you know, the housing market's like very expensive. So it's a huge financial undertaking, okay? They're going to be in debt for a very long time. And my friend in her excitement said, "Oh my gosh, are they getting married?" And in defensiveness, her mother went, "Oh my God, no. They haven't talked about that. They haven't talked. It's only been 3 years. They haven't even discussed that." And she went, "What have you been doing for 3 years? And why would you plunge yourself into lifelong debt?" So do you see what I mean? It's like, I can tie my finances to you. I can have a baby with you. I can sleep with you. I can do all kinds of things with you. But we've been somehow taught that to talk about emotion, to talk about feelings, to be vulnerable, gross. That's too far now. You know, it's what? Who said that? And that's what I'm saying. It's like we're all chronically online, and we're all chronically like too much watching TV, because it's crazy to me. This is craziness, okay? And I'm not alone. I see it in everyone. So, yes, lack of sex is isolating, but that depends on your definition of isolation, okay? You can have friends without sleeping with them. But I also want to say, one of the reasons that people find even too much sex can be isolating, because too much of anything isn't good. Like I opened this about like prudish culture. Like imagine like the Victorian era or the turn of the century. Oh my God, is it? Don't quote me on this. I think it's Gone with the Wind, where they have to go to like a dinner party, and she eats, and the whole thing around that was so fascinating to me. She eats before the dinner party. And the reasoning behind that was, you don't want to be seen as like an unwed woman who's seeking prospects to be married off to someone, you know, as eating too much in public, because it's like you have no self-control. You're clearly like ravenous, which is somehow equated to a sexual appetite. So like an appetite for food means like an appetite for all other things that are bodily pleasure. We could talk about that a lot in another video, but that's kind of like one of the main reasons that people down on like fatness or being overweight, because they're like, oh, you have no self-control, which means you have no morality, which means you'll just bang anything. And it's like, I really don't think it does. I think you're just hungry, or you just, that's it. That's just how you look. I don't understand how that correlates. But even back then, it was like, women seeking pleasure, believing in pleasure, wanting pleasure is like, no, 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 right? And it's, anyway, that's very isolating. So we went from a very prudish culture to a culture where everything is out there. And that doesn't serve us either, because that's just really extreme, you know? And to somehow be in the middle, and when I say in the middle, I mean, have your own definition, have your own opinion, have your own thoughts. Someone in the comments put, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody says. Sex is only for marriage, you know? And I thought, good for you. Good for you. All I'm asking is like, think for yourself. If that works for you, that works for you. If this works for you, go live that. And if that works for you, go live that, okay? Don't have it at all or have as much as you want. But at the end of the day, be the one to make up your mind, okay? Like actually ask yourself these things, you know? So people have their own requirements. And that's what I find the most like heartwarming, is that we're not being collectively brainwashed. Because when that happens, that's when we get people just quoting podcasters and repeating ideas that aren't even their own, and they're not even like heartfelt. And then 10, 20 years when they wake up, they're like, oh man, I got duped because like I believed something I shouldn't. That doesn't help anyone, okay? So there's a lack of willingness to learn, grow, and understand each other. Or this I would agree. I mean, I talk about this all the time. I've My only problem with people is people who have a problem with me, and I seek to correct that to the best of my ability. I don't like to make general sweeping generalizations, but the ones that I've lived, the ones that I've seen, of course, I'm going to make a comment. I mean, here's one. Somebody left a lovely, heartwarming comment. Yeesh. Every time I see a video like this, meaning my video, all I think is how crappy some people's youths were. What killed the free love was the massive rise of incurable STDs, not boredom. No. Nothing killed free love. That's where you're wrong in the first part, okay? The sexual liberation, free love movement, whatever, isn't, that's what I'm saying. It's still in full swing. The idea that you can just get laid as much as you want and there's no emotional or social consequences. And I use the word consequence because I don't know what to say, side effect or something. And somebody got mad at me for using the word consequence. They're like, no consequences. I'm like, it's called language. Like, there's only so much I can do. I didn't make it up, okay? So I'm trying to say, like, but there are, because one day you wake up and you're like, that was never right for me. Or some people in the comments even said I had a partner for a really long time. And because of the influence of their friends who were going out and meeting different people every weekend, they felt that they were missing out. So they ended an 8-year relationship, a 10-year relationship, a 7-year relationship, so they can go and see what it was about. And then they came crawling back. There was nothing there for them. And I'm like devastated. And everybody loses. He loses and I lose. Everybody loses. So in any case, but this comment about how miserable some, and nothing to do, like most STDs are curable these days. What is incurable? Is herpes, but I mean, most people live with herpes. And then the other one, I guess, would be AIDS, HIV AIDS, but they have like PrEP and such. So, I mean, again, the stigmatization around that is also not very helpful. In any case, you also have to remember, yes, he mentioned people's youths. So here's another thing to remember. If you're female, Chris Rock did the stand-up on HBO. I don't remember if it was Bigger and Blacker or Never Scared, one of the two. When I was like younger, it was obviously it was on HBO. But he said, do you know why it's like hard being a woman? He's like, because I'm paraphrasing, but he said like if a man opens a door for you and you thank him, all you're thinking why he did that is, you're welcome. I just want to fuck you. He's like, every man you've met since you were 13 years old has just wanted to you. And obviously it's going to make you like, it's a jarring experience. You know, if you've been stalked, if you've been ogled as like a child, as like a 13-year-old who was in puberty or something, it does something to you. Right? So naturally, you're going to be guarded. You're going to be on high alert at all times. And that goes also, that misses out a really important point. It assumes that young men aren't also sexually abused. They are. And then when they get older, they're really weary of like sharing themselves with someone else and they have trust issues. This is like a human thing. Like we all have trust issues about something. Even a lack of trust is trusting in the lack of trust. You can't help but trust, so it's just very painful when you do it the other way around. So anyway, it's not very fun, but you just have to remember, not everyone has an approach to physical sex as a fun-loving one. To some people, it holds a lot of weight. To some people, it means something. You know, they're spiritual or they're religious, or even if they have a lot of stigma around that or like shame, that's why it's really important to them. And if you're interested in that person being your partner, then I feel that you've chosen them, so it's up to you to decide, how are we going to talk about this? Like, how are we going to work through it? And not like, if you don't put out, whether you're a man or woman, if you don't put out, well, you're no fun. Just kick it, you know? It's like, well, then don't sign up to be with someone who's like maybe deep or has had a different life experience than you or has a different opinion about the stuff than you, right? And another thing too, abuse can lead to hypersexuality. That doesn't mean they don't want to talk about it. That doesn't mean they don't want to trust. They don't, you know, they've just had a different path to that realization. So it's all valid. It's all valid. All right. In any case, somebody even asked about like compatibility sexually, and you can see that in astrology and in birth charts. So you can see couples that will have friction there, couples that will have more like coldness. So you can definitely do that through synastry. Yeah, anyways, I have synastry readings if you're interested. I'll link everything below. And then overwhelming amount, men and women said, I really want cuddles. I want like 8 cuddles in Starbucks, you know, or I want to come home. I'm tired. I'm blue collar. I come home. I want to like cuddle and sit on the couch and watch TV and then fall asleep. It just makes me feel safe. It helps me like unwind. You have to also consider your nervous system, what that does to the nervous system when you have someone embrace you. Was it like a 15-second hug is all it takes for someone's mood to start lifting. Incredible, you know? Okay. So someone also said sex appeal and attraction are not a gateway to love anymore. That's actually true. There was once upon a time. Okay, so I love like Motown, you know, like those lyrics, the way men used to sing about women, majority of the time, was just like so inspiring and so romantic. And it was sort of assumed that like if you were attracted to somebody, you were willing to get to know them. Because if you fell in love with them and you secured a relationship with them, it would lead to this like orgasmic, fantastical experience or whatever, right? And now it's like, oh no, we can just have that, but none of this. And in some ways, people still have not divorced the two, okay? And I don't think you should. I think it's good for you to have it all. Why wouldn't you have it all if you could have it all? But I remember one girl back in the day I went to university with, she was like, I just don't understand. This guy has been after, like we were like mutuals. I kind of like regret that I introduced them in the end because he was just not like mature enough. But he went on and on. He just banged on about wanting a serious relationship. He's like, I never had one. I really, really want one. This, that, the other. And he said, like, I don't want to hook up. I don't want to do this stuff. Blah, blah, blah. So after like 5 or so dates, they do the deed. Like a week later, like I'm in touch with her, but like him and my good friend, like we're all hanging out. We're going out somewhere. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to call her. She's a slut and all this. And I was like, pardon me? And I was like, for weeks, you've been like chomping at the bit to get her to be your girlfriend. Why not? He said, because she like put out too easily. I'm like, okay. And I talked to her and I said, what's going on? And she went, I don't understand because he wanted to have like a connection before sleeping with someone. So we established, like they had like a verbal agreement, right? That, they were headed towards a serious relationship. And she said, we did the one thing that's like the most vulnerable thing you can do. Like we got butt naked and like ground on each other. Okay. Just like wearing out our knees, you know? And, and she's like, and now he's saying, oh, I don't want you anymore. It doesn't make any sense. And he said, yeah, she did it too quickly after like 5 weeks or something. Right. I said, I don't get it. I don't get it because you've made this like moving goalpost in your mind that really no one can satisfy. Like no one knows how to make you happy. So you want to do it and you want a relationship. So someone gives you a relationship and then they do it with you. And now you don't want a relationship with them and you don't want to do it with them either. It's like, you just don't know what you want, right? You don't know what you want. So that's what I mean is like the person who mentioned that the attraction and the appeal are not the gateway to that anymore. But you can still see, even in this young man's mind, he wanted both of those things. But he just got like so psyched out thinking that I should want one more than the other. And there's like rules to this. It's like, no, there isn't. That girl could make you wait 5 years. She can make you wait 5 months. But at the end of the day, if you don't really know what you're about or what you're doing or what you want, you're going to find some way to cast judgment and make it not work, you know? So anyway, he came back, but he got kicked to the curb rightfully. And then people also mentioned a lot of the cost of love, you know? Money, capitalism is making it really hard for people to date and take each other seriously. However, it's possible to have dates that don't cost a lot of money that are high effort, okay? You can go on a date to a really nice restaurant, 7-course chef's tasting meal, whatever, and just feel like it's like a dud, you know, because the person's not interested in talking to you. They're not interested in really knowing what's up. It's whatever. And if they can afford it, they just kind of like throw their power around. You can smell, like we're mammals. Like we can pick up each other's energies. We can pick up each other's like micro expressions. We know when something's up, right? And at the same time, if you don't, have a lot of cash to spare, you meet up at like a free night at the museum or the art gallery. You walk around, you share an ice cream, you make each other laugh, you do something creative. That's really appreciated because you're putting your energy into something. Okay. If you sit there like a dead fish, I don't care how much that dinner costs. I'm not having a good time. And my barometer was always, if I'm going to have more fun at home, I won't even go on the date. Okay. So if the guy is like completely flop on text and he's like, I don't want to go, I guess if you'd like to get dinner, it's like, no, don't need to guess. I'll save you the trouble. I'll make my own dinner. Have a nice life, you know? And if you're like interested and enthused, even if it doesn't work out, even if you stay friends or whatever, right? You can flow. People will appreciate the effort. They really will. I said the story so many times before. This former coworker of mine went on a first date with this guy during the Olympics that happened in Canada. And he said, I have a gift for you. And, you know, in her culture, I guess it like wasn't common for men to like bring a gift to the first date. And she was like worried it was going to be like tacky or too personal, or he was going to embarrass her with a giant like display of flowers. I don't object to any of the above. You can embarrass me. I don't care. I don't care. You know, give me whatever. I love gifts. But she was like, oh my God, no. But in his culture, you never showed up empty handed. But he did something really thoughtful. So he had money, he had power, but he didn't go to like vintage Cartier and like bust out a trolley full of jewelry. He just got her a pair of commemorative mittens. Remember those red mittens that had like the Olympic rings and it said like Vancouver, whatever the year was? And I was like, that's so nice. And it was winter. It was like January, right? So whatever it was the Winter Olympics. And I thought that's really nice because it's thoughtful, but it's not like too personal. And again, it didn't cost a lot of money. That's the whole point, is that he put thought into it, you know? So again, someone out there is going to be like, I don't want to buy a gift on a first date. Five first dates every week. That's like too much. Okay, you shouldn't be having 5 first date every week, because it means like your filter is broken unless you live in a demographic where there's amazing people to choose from. In which case, if you are, drop the location in the comments. I'm sure we'd all love to know where you're living. Okay. So this is probably one of the most insightful ones. Someone wrote, if you don't have a healthy relationship to sex, it doesn't matter how much sex you're actually having at all. This is true. If you don't have a healthy relationship to sex, whether you have it or don't, doesn't make a difference, because you can abuse something, right? So like if you say, I really like sex, so I have a lot of it, but I don't enjoy any of it. Well, if you really like something, you should kind of have a sense of appreciation for it, or know when it's right, when it's wrong for you. You should know the supply, you know, something to that effect. Okay. You should be able to like discern. And just because you're getting it or not getting it doesn't really mean that you get it. Like there's some people who are like, oh, I don't do that because, you know, I like, okay, like, you know, I'm a spiritual person. So some people get a little carried away. They're like, well, I'm this spiritual, and nothing is bigger in this world than spiritual ego. It kind of rocks me sometimes. I'm like, damn, people really think just walking around boldly proclaiming crazy things, but they are, you know, they'll be like, I'm spiritual and I don't do that. I don't want to pollute my thing. And okay, totally fine. But then they start ripping on everyone around them. Like they're not thinking conscious human beings who can't decide what's right for them either. And I think, well, then you don't have a good relationship to sex. Because to me, that's no different than a person who was raised in a really shameful environment, you know, like dogmatic and all that, like typical super religious, whatever, right? So if you don't have a good relationship to it, whether you get it or don't, it doesn't make a difference. You have to do that internal work, and then that thing will be rewarding to you. And then there was a lot of legalizing prostitution. Well, legalizing prostitution doesn't help you in terms of intimacy. And though I don't doubt at all that some customers end up falling in love and having relationships with, I'm guessing if they get engaged or married, maybe are no longer working in that field, whether they're men or women, for the most part, most people will not. Most people will not. Okay, so it doesn't do much by way of intimacy. Okay, so again, if you're just satisfying that physical need, but you're still isolated and you're lonely, we're not really getting anywhere. But again, yeah, if you're really safe about it, you know, you should legalize prostitution. I don't see the problem. We have access to healthcare. We have access to, you know, it keeps people safe as well. Okay, men's depression. Someone wrote men's depression. I'm only laughing because I don't remember what I wrote, and I was like, oh, that's a bit blunt, but it says men's depression is not my problem. Individually and like generally, I don't really tend to put other people's issues on myself. And then people will say it's not my problem until it affects you. Then you go, oh my God, this is like a real problem. Had that been taken care of, this wouldn't have happened to me, or something like that. Okay. Whatever, you know, like if people discipline their children better, kids wouldn't egg houses on Halloween, something to that effect. Okay. Or something, toilet paper houses, Which also I'm surprised this year for the first time for Halloween, I found so few kids actually said trick or treat or like hi or thank you. And I was like, what's going on? Like in my day, if you didn't say trick or treat, the person would just close the door in your face and you wouldn't get a candy. You had to be like on your best behavior. But anyway, again, that's like really isolating, isn't it? Whose problem is it? I do wonder whose problem it is, because I believe in personal responsibility. And it's interesting to me because when you see men coming out, like professors doing podcasts, for example, professors writing books, psychologists, self-help coaches, whoever, okay, trying to help, you also get people who hate those people. So it's like even the people who were sent to help you sometimes you reject, and sometimes society makes you think, it's always society, man. Society makes you think, don't listen to that person, they're a bad person. It's like, oh my God, like, then who do you get help from? So, I mean, just diversify your options. And I mean, if you're like in pain and you're suffering, even if you're a stranger, I think you still reserve the right to reach out to somebody, you know. We're all in this together. I don't think being on Earth is easy, and I don't wish depressive episodes on anybody. I've had many of them, and I don't find them fun. I'm naturally a melancholy person. I can be a little bit moody, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, yeah. But my thing, yeah, I don't make it anyone else's problem, but still, it's heavy to think that you're alone in that. It's not fair, I don't think, in some way, because we're all human and we all deserve to be here, some capacity, don't we? So then not having sex is not a problem, and it's not my problem, months or not. That's what I was saying. If you're not getting it through movies, shows, whatever, it's sort of pushed upon you, okay, that something's wrong with you. Either you're not good looking, you're not rich, you're not worthy. That's just crazy, because technically, say you got married, you know, God willing, if that's what you want, God willing, you get married, you have a beautiful, healthy child. God forbid, but let's say your wife is not feeling so good after that birth. She's had to have some blood transfusions. She's really low energy. Her iron's all messed up. There's no way, I don't think, in hell you're going to be back at it in like 6 weeks, right? So like sometimes it takes like 3 to 6 months for like this chronic fatigue to wear off, on top of that being a new parent. So you go 6 months to a year while your wife is healing, not having it. That's just a normal experience. It really is. I don't think when people are younger, they don't like actually understand that like pregnancy and birth are high risk medical activities. Okay, this shit is not fun. It's not like rainbows. That's why I think people make pregnancy about like fluffy unicorn marshmallows and angel bearing pillow clouds. It's like, because it's just so like primal and like brutal that we have to kind of like drown that out. But when you really understand like how dangerous that can be, you're just like happy your partner made it out alive at the end of that, you know, that the last thing on your mind would be like, let's go, just get it, you know. It's like, oh, it's not funny, man. You're going to be a single dad if you push her to the limit, you know. So there's just so much more. There's so much more to that. When you speak to people in their 40s and 50s who've been married for a while, even they acknowledge like there's so much to do in life. And yes, it's really nice to have an intimate partnership with your partner. You have to talk about it. There are times when you go through bouts of illness, physical or mental. There are going to be times when you're grieving. People around you are going to start dropping like flies. It's not the time to be bringing up like a raging hard-on or something like that, or like a fantasy, you know? So you just mature into those things. That's all I mean, is like, the reason it's hard to address these comments is some of them were made by very young people who haven't had like that. Like, God bless them. They haven't tasted the bitterness of life and all that it holds. They've only focused on the sweet. And then people my age and older who are like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, there's just so much more, and it's so much more fulfilling when you treat a relationship like a buffet that has a little bit of everything, rather than just this like lobster tail. I just want lobster. Give me lobster, everything else isn't worth a shit. It's like, no, man. There's sides. There's beverages. There's a salad fork. There's a soup spoon. There's a lot of things to get through. It's all good in its own measure and in its own time. So yeah, if you're not getting it, again, it's not like something that's being deprived from you. A lot of it has to do with timing. Do you live in the right demographic? You know, have you figured some stuff out about yourself? And the idea that you should just be able to walk out your house and go to a bar and people just lining up to meet you is like, I mean, I would love that to be true if that's what you really want. I would love to be treated that way, you know, if that's what I really wanted, but it's like, just not. I still have to earn the respect of my partners. Like, when I'm in a relationship, I have to earn a man's respect. I have to show that I honor him. I have to show that he's appreciated and that I like him. I like to be around him. I care about his ideas, his opinions, his thoughts, his feelings. Okay. It's because we're both human. And I if that's not shown back to me, I leave, right? And if it is, I stay. And that's generally how things tend to work out in the world. Just because you don't experience something doesn't mean it isn't real. Yeah, this one's like just so common and so chronically true. Over and over, you'll see on the internet people saying, where are these men who make you feel scared and endangered and it's like, dude, just because you can walk around at night in a mall parking lot without flinching or being really paranoid and running with your keys and like locking the car as soon as you get in, doesn't mean that's not how I see the world. So you have to have some like depth and breadth of understanding that every time you come up to a woman, which I think, you know, if you're interested and if the setting is right, whatever, you reserve the right to socialize. That's totally fine. You can go up to people. If they are afraid of you, if they're not interested, if they're not in the mood, you have to respect that because you don't know what that soul has been through. Okay, so like just because I don't have testicles doesn't mean I get to sit here and be like, getting hit in the nutsack doesn't hurt because it's never happened to me. It's like, yeah, because you don't have balls, you know? So just being like, men are in a danger to women because it's like, no, just because it hasn't happened to you doesn't mean a rip, you know? Excuse me. Sorry, that was bubble tea, Earl Grey, very good. But the last point I already mentioned, which is you have to take into account people's childhoods. All people. Here's another gem. Long-winded attempt at deflection of accountability. Uh-oh, yeah, this is going exactly where you think it is. Women are the gatekeepers of sex, and they're the ones who have decided to avoid 90% of men. I am not responsible for you getting your schlong wet. No, not in this world, not another, not 1,000 years ago, not 1,000 years from now, not in the third dimension, fourth, fifth, in the astral, not in my dreams, not in your fucking dreams. In no world do I care or am any woman or is responsible for your horniness. Because in no world is a man responsible for a woman's horniness. It comes down to a mutual agreement, okay, that two people decide amongst themselves. Or if they're in a group, that group decides amongst themselves, right? So two men decide amongst themselves. Two women get together, decide amongst themselves, okay? It's just crazy to be like, well, if I want it and you don't give it to me, that's your problem. I want money. I love money. Green is my favorite. I'm wearing green right now. I'm wearing a green bracelet. I'm wearing green, okay? I was just using a green highlighter. I was writing in a green pen. Do I just go to a bank and go give money? Do I just tell my clients, money, please? But you know what? I'm not going to do that reading. Actually, I don't give a rip about your solar return. I don't give a rip about your birth chart. I don't give a no. You exchange it for something. So in this sense, I mean like emotional investment. It's to him, it's so black and white. It's so funny to me. Here's the comment. I don't know about you, but I like women's sexual liberation because I easily get what I want. He has his full name on there. We're not gonna what was this? This is really good. Oh, you know what it is too? I just remember some guy said, okay, just like they don't care about pregnancy, women's rights opinions, you know, things they should care about in order to have sex. And then somebody who kind of like told them themselves earlier as well said, I just say I care about those things and then I get even more girls. So they're just basically, a lot of people like are learning certain behaviors. This is the equivalent of the, like what people on the internet will call like a pick me. Like the girls were like, I only like beer. I watch sports, you know, and then everyone's like, why do you care? You know, and then this is the equivalent where guys do that. They signal to you like big feminist energy, and it's like they don't really care. They're just getting what they want, right? So, I mean, there's too much to go through, but yeah. So this gentleman said, I don't feel entitled to the act of sex, but I do feel entitled to the opportunity to talk to other women with whom I can form a relationship to have meaningful sex on a regular basis, but not daily, but frequent. However, it's difficult to even find women to start even a platonic relationship. I can't even get to the rejection part, let alone the acceptance of forming a foundation. So what he's saying is like, obviously you don't just expect something or that like you're obliged to it, but he's like, I reserve the right to hit on someone. I reserve the right to talk to them, to compliment them, whatever. Fine. I think that's fair. Like we're social mammals. Don't forget, we are social. the science of how information travels amongst people is still the most trusted way that we actually get to where we want to be in life. Like we tend to, let's say, like marry people through people we've met. I've been unknowingly really good at that, introducing people, connecting people, getting people hired. You give them your reference, you give them your referral. Hey, hire my cousin. Hey, my neighbor does really good graphic design. Why don't you hire them? That's how things kind of work. So yeah, if you go up, you show your face, you show your name, we start to, this is the equivalent of dogs like sniffing their butts in a dog park. a little more demure. But sure, I think that's proper. You're saying, I want to get to know you. And once I know you, if we like each other and we're about it, then it wouldn't be so bad if we got to do this from time to time or whenever it strikes our fancy. Fair enough. Here it goes. Sex is for marriage. I don't care what anyone says. To which someone replied, tell that to your priest, skull emoji. But you know what? I made a video in defense of that gentleman. That's what I'm saying. You get to define it. It means what it means to you. I don't care. And this is what I want to say earlier as well. It's really amazing to me. The same-sex sexual relationships, same-sex discussion around sex and how they view sex as well. Okay, because there have been and obviously my gay friends have been like, just because, I just feel like everybody loses. They're like, just because I'm a gay man doesn't mean I don't want my hand held. Doesn't mean I don't want to come home to someone and like tell them about my day. But there's this odd cloud, almost like it's like an inky mist, like when a squid squirts ink in the water and it's like polluted and you're like, get it away from me. It's like, I'm not just here for hookups. Like, I'm not just because I'm a man don't forget, like, they're like, I am gay, but I'm a man first, like I'm still a man. I'm still human. There's this like almost like less empathy for gay men or gay women because they're like, oh, but like you're amongst the same sex. So hooking up is easier for you. Getting understanding is easier for you. It's like, no, this is what I'm talking about. It's the culture of hypersexualization. It's making everybody miss out on things that they want. And what if you're a romantic soul? What if you're a romantic soul? Does it really matter what your sexuality is? Not at all, right? You still have the right to want what you want and experience the love that you desire. Or if you're sentimental, what if you're sensitive? What if you're soft? What if you're all of the above? What if you're one of the above or some of the above? We're just human. That's all I'm saying. It's like, we're just human. So trying to like intellectualize it, define it, over define it, blame this on these people, blame that on those people. Stop. Okay. We're all in the trenches eating shit. And it's not cool. There's the other comment that I mentioned. It's the glue. It's not the sex is the glue. And someone said, the same dude went, now you sound like a conservative. Emoji. Sex should be liberating for both sexes, especially for women. But why is it like women that need to be liberated? I don't understand. So just because you have access to sex as a woman now with less like, social restrictions or taboo, doesn't actually mean that it's any better. Doesn't mean it's any better for you. Doesn't mean that anybody cares about your orgasm. Doesn't mean that anybody knows how to give you one. Doesn't mean that anybody cares about your needs. Do you know what I mean? Just because you can access it does not make it a pleasant experience. Just because we talk about it openly now, or more so than we had like 100 years ago, right? Doesn't mean that it's helping you live your life to the fullest in some sense. Because at the end of the day, like if you can just go on an app and pick someone, what are the odds of that person actually being able to give you what you want? Right there on the spot. And this is another thing I kind of don't want to go into too much, but I have had messages, I have had a couple comments, and then also for my own life, you also have to remember, like when I say like, doesn't mean that the woman gets what she wants, right? I've had men tell me, like my guy friends and men in general, just go, the pressure for you to like perform is like, it's not fun. I don't enjoy this. It's like, okay, we're back at yours. Do a good job. And it's not like she's doing it. She's not doing that. She's not pressuring this guy. But it's when we get on these devices and these conversations on TV shows or whatever, it's like, we're just looking to like give people check marks and like, well, those like stickers. Someone's going to be like, yes, please, praise kink, but they'll be like, good job, good job, good job, bad job, bad job, bad job. It's just so lame. It's so hurtful. It's hurtful to people. It's not fun, is it? So anyway, Oh, we could talk about this forever, but we're just going to end it there. Let me see if there's anything else I can mention. And that's what I mean. It's just once it's divorced, once we separate it from like intimacy, social interactions, consideration for another, it becomes mindless consumerism. It's just mindless consumption, and it doesn't make you feel fulfilled. It just doesn't, because you plateau. You're like, oh, I can have that. It's like, when you start making more money, you just adjust to how you use that money. It doesn't make you feel thrilled anymore. And you make a little more, you become accustomed to that. It doesn't thrill you anymore, because you grow, because you're now like an income earning adult. So every time you get a promotion, you just adjust to that, and the high wears off. And this is much the same. It's sort of like an addictive thing, like you start there, and by the end, you're having your nose surgically reconstructed because you just didn't feel anything on that journey on the way up. Okay? And the depersonalization definitely tends to devalue relationships. And that's what I was saying earlier too. And we can talk about sex. We could talk about, someone in the comments said, if you want to know what she means, just Google penal destruction. That's what our society is like consuming these days. So we can talk about that, Mr. Tulip, whatever, whatever. But to be like, hey, I really care about you and I want to get to know you, or I know we just started a relationship, but I'm going through a really hard time. The person's like, oh, abort, abort, abort. This isn't fun. This isn't fun. It's like, not everything is meant to be fun. It's meant to be an experience. It's meant to help you grow. It's meant to help you learn. It's meant to help you taste all kinds of things in life. Like I said, bitter and sweet, so you just have to have that buffet, but you have to have that like wherewithal. You have to be a seasoned individual to know that. And when you do know that, you enjoy it a lot better, right? So anyway, for what it's worth, thank you for listening. And until next time, I will definitely go into it some more. There's a lot to say, and I think I'll make it into a series. But if you haven't had a chance to watch Sex and the Spiritual Path series with Edgar Cayce, it's on here, so go ahead and watch that. And I do have a TikTok version. Thank you for being here, and as always, I love you all so much. Bye-bye for now.